Have you ever noticed how much we rely on the illusion of control? Like, you wake up, you make your coffee, maybe you take a specific route to work.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We build these little predictable routines for ourselves because, honestly, they make a super chaotic world feel manageable. There's this huge psychological safety net in knowing exactly what is going to happen in the next 10 minutes.
Right. It's basically a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
The human brain is, it's essentially a prediction engine.
Yeah.
When our predictions are right, the train arrives on time, the coffee tastes the way it always does, our nervous system gets to relax. We aren't burning energy scanning for threats.
Well, I've been looking through the source material for today's custom deep dive for you, and it takes that exact psychological safety net and just completely turns it into a weapon.
It really does. It's
Yeah.
brutal.
We're looking at a webtoon script titled Dead Air at 3 a.m., and it forces you to ask this really deeply unsettling question. What happens when absolute certainty, like knowing every single microscopic detail of the next 10 minutes, isn't a comfort, but is actually the source of the most excruciating terror imaginable?
Yeah, it creates this incredible paradox. You are completely prepared for what's coming, but you're entirely powerless to stop it.
Exactly.
It's a fascinating exploration of, I guess you could call it temporal claustrophobia. You aren't just trapped in a physical space, you're trapped in a rigidly defined sequence of time.
Let me set the stage for you, because the physical environment here is just critical. We are placed inside a cramped, heavily soundproofed radio broadcast booth.
Super tight fit.
Right. And it's sitting in a completely isolated station building. Outside, there is a catastrophic storm raging, but because of the thick acoustic padding, you can barely hear it. It's just this muffled, impressive pressure.
Which is, a brilliant audiovisual choice by the creator. Soundproofing is designed to keep the outside world away, right? To
Yeah.
create a sterile environment for broadcasting.
Yeah, exactly.
But in a horror context, it instantly becomes a sensory deprivation chamber. It completely isolates the protagonist. It cuts off any hope of rescue or even awareness of what's happening in the outside reality.
And sitting right in the center of that isolation is Marcus. He's a 40-something overnight radio DJ. He's in this worn flannel shirt, wearing these heavy broadcasting headphones.
Right.
But it's his face that really sets the tone. The script describes him as radiating this deep, inescapable exhaustion, not just, the kind of tired you get from a long shift.
No, it's like a fundamental soul-deep depletion.
Exactly. And that exhaustion is our first clue that we aren't looking at a standard linear narrative here.
Yeah, and to really dissect how this script operates, we have to talk about the unique dual-voice narrative structure it uses.
Oh, yeah. The text on the page is actually split.
Right. So we have Marcus's voice, which is his internal monologue. It's raspy, cynical, and laced with this tight escalating panic.
Which I'll be channeling today. I really felt for the guy.
Yeah, and layered over that is what the script calls the scenario voice, which I'll be focusing on.
I'm so glad you're taking the scenario voice because I found it infinitely creepier than the actual physical threat. It's omniscient, but it is just completely devoid of empathy.
It's entirely clinical. The scenario voice documents the horror like a researcher observing a chemical reaction in a petri dish.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't judge at all. It just states the facts. And that detachment is highly effective. In most horror, the narrator or the camera is empathetic to the victim's plight.
But not here.
No, not here.
Yeah.
When the narrator is entirely indifferent, it signals to the reader that the universe itself just does not care about Marcus.
Okay, let's unpack this temporal horror, starting right at the beginning of the sequence. The digital clock on his console sharp green LEDs strikes exactly 2:50 a.m.
And right there, the scenario voice simply states, "The silence is absolute," and it describes the booth as a padded cell of acoustic foam.
What's fascinating here is how the environment itself feels like this impartial observer.
Notice the deliberate shift in vocabulary, too. It strips away the concept of a functional workspace and redefines it as an asylum. It's establishing the architecture of a very specific kind of purgatory.
Even the lighting is weaponized.
Oh, yeah. The script notes that the red on-air sign above the heavy steel door glows with the intensity of an open wound.
I really struggled a bit with that metaphor at first, like why an open wound? But the more I thought about it, the more it makes sense.
How so?
Well, it's not just a warning light, it's a hemorrhage. It's the reality of his situation bleeding into this artificially controlled environment. Because Marcus knows exactly what that room is.
Right, his internal monologue tells us he knows every speck of dust on the soundboard.
Yes. And he explicitly claims he has broadcasted this exact hour thousands of times. It's not just a prison, it's a recurring nightmare. But it's one where the dreamer knows all the terrifying beats and still can't wake up.
Which brings us back to that idea of predicting the future. Marcus is entirely lucid within this loop.
But that's the part I really want to challenge, though. If you know exactly what's going to happen, does the anticipation make the fear better or worse? Like, if I know a jump scare is coming in a movie, I tense up, but the fear is mitigated because I'm prepared.
Right.
If Marcus knows exactly what happens at 2:50 a.m., down to the second, why is his terror compounding instead of dulling? Shouldn't he just be numb to it by the thousandth loop?
You would think so, yeah, if we were dealing with a purely rational brain. But we aren't. We are dealing with trauma and the nervous system.
Oh, that makes sense.
Knowing the outcome doesn't dull the fear if the outcome is agonizing. In fact, the anticipation amplifies it because it highlights a complete lack of agency.
Ah, because he can't change it.
Exactly. When you watch a scary movie, you know you're safe on your couch. Marcus knows he is going to physically suffer. The dread comes from that inescapable gap between his knowledge of the event and his inability to alter it.
It's the complete destruction of free will.
Precisely. And that loss of agency is visualized so brilliantly through the next sequence, the mechanical dread of line 4.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the physical environment actually starts to turn against him. In the center of this massive, dark broadcasting console, a single, small acrylic button starts to pulse.
Just a rhythmic, sharp yellow flash.
Yeah, and the label just says line 4.
The clinical scenario voice labels this a mechanical intrusion. It calls the yellow light a beacon from the outside world.
But function-wise, it's basically operant conditioning, right?
Exactly. The universe has delivered a stimulus, and Marcus is required to provide the response.
But he doesn't want to. His internal monologue is screaming at him to just sit on his hands. He tells us he has tried to stop the light before.
Oh, he's tried everything.
Yeah. In past loops, he's unhooked the thick cables under the desk. He's even picked up his rolling chair and completely smashed the broadcasting console to pieces.
But it doesn't matter. The universe simply reroutes the signal.
The yellow light always comes back. It's like this digital heartbeat of the universe, forcing Marcus to execute his own doom.
The scenario voice uses this explicit phrase, resistance is an illusion. And we see that lay out in how Marcus's body actually betrays him.
It's horrifying. His conscious mind is fighting, but his physical arm goes completely numb. He describes it as feeling like invisible strings are pulling his muscles.
Right.
His trembling finger reaches out entirely on its own and presses that flashing yellow button. I have to admit, I got really stuck on this mechanism.
Why is that?
If he is trapped in a supernatural purgatory, why does the universe need him to press the button? Like, why not just force the audio through the speakers anyway?
It's about complicity. It's psychological torture. If the universe just plays the sound, Marcus is a passive victim.
Oh, wow. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, by forcing his physical body to initiate the sequence, by making his finger press the button, the purgatory is making him an active participant in his own death.
That is so twisted.
It is. It's a phenomenon closely related to learned helplessness, but it's inverted. His mind has learned it's helpless, but his body is subjected to this somatic compulsion.
So his body is just like executing the code regardless of his mental state. And the code is a nightmare.
Oh, it really is.
He opens the channel, but there isn't a voice immediately waiting for him. The script provides this really striking split-panel visual. The digital waveform monitor on his screen spikes violently with these jagged, erratic red lines.
The sound design described here is vital. Visual mediums really struggle to convey audio, so the script relies heavily on those jagged red waveforms.
Right.
The scenario voice describes the sound as a grinding static, spiking like a saw blade. It goes so far as to call it the sound of the earth tearing itself apart.
And Marcus is trapped under those heavy noise-canceling headphones, so that static is just being pumped directly into his skull. He says it's so loud his teeth vibrate.
But he has to listen.
Yeah, he's forced to endure the static because he knows what's hiding underneath it. A phantom caller. A highly distorted, watery female whisper.
And she always says the exact same phrase.
The levee just broke, Marcus.
Let's analyze that choice for a second. Why a watery whisper instead of, say, a scream of panic?
Well, a scream implies someone is still fighting, you know? A whisper implies it's already too late. It's this intimate, inescapable truth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shifts the horror from psychological anticipation, waiting for the shoe to drop, to physical, unstoppable destruction.
Yeah, the whisper is the catalyst. And suddenly we hit 2:55 a.m. on the clock.
5 minutes into the loop, the scenario voice declares, The prophecy is fulfilled.
And we finally see the physical intrusion. Beneath that heavy, reinforced steel, acoustic padded door, a thick, dark liquid begins to bleed into the gray carpeting.
And the script specifies, it isn't just water. It's a heavy, churning mix of mud, rain, and river water.
The impenetrable fortress is completely breached. And this is the moment where the script drops the context we need to actually understand his punishment.
Through Marcus's internal monologue.
Right. We finally get the backstory. On the actual night this happened, in his real life, he had no idea he was in danger. He thought the catastrophic storm outside was just heavy rain.
He was completely oblivious.
Doing his mundane graveyard shift, totally ignorant of the fact that this specific radio station was built in a valley directly below a massive industrial levee. He didn't know millions of gallons of water were about to wipe the station off the map.
It's the horror of the mundane intersecting with the catastrophic here. Okay. His original death was likely a massive, confusing shock.
Yeah.
But his punishment is that the shock has been removed. Now he just gets to watch the inevitability of it arrive over and over and over again.
But here is where human psychology creates the ultimate friction in this story. He knows the water is coming. He knows he has died here thousands of times. Yet his body absolutely explodes into action.
He can't help it.
He tears off those heavy headphones. He knocks over the rolling chair and scrambles across the room. He grabs a heavy red metal fire extinguisher right off the wall.
And the scenario voice notes this with that same clinical detachment.
Panic overrides the script.
Yes, he swings that heavy metal cylinder with just primal force at the thick, double-paned observation glass. He's swinging so hard he is literally tearing his own muscles.
Oh, it's brutal.
His internal monologue reveals his plan. If he can just smash the glass, he can swim up through the water and catch onto some floating debris on the roof.
Right.
But I look at this and I just think, why? If Marcus knows he's trapped in a time loop, if he knows the outcome is fixed, why subject himself to the physical agony of fighting so violently?
Because the biological imperative to survive just does not care about logic.
Yeah, the brain's threat response system, which is situated deep in the amygdala, it operates faster and way more powerfully than the prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thought. Marcus, the intellectual being, knows it's futile. But Marcus, the biological organism, cannot simply sit in a chair and allow itself to drown. The instinct to fight for oxygen is hardwired.
So his own biology is basically betraying his intellect. Human instinct refuses to be extinguished.
Yes, and it makes the inevitable failure profoundly more tragic and agonizing. It's not just a failure of the environment.
It's a recurring defeat of his deepest human instincts.
Exactly.
And that defeat hits at exactly 2:58 a.m. 2 minutes left on the clock. He takes a final, massive swing with the extinguisher, and the glass does not shatter.
It doesn't break away.
No, only spider webs.
Because it's thick and stubborn.
Because it's Category 5 hurricane glass.
Which is a brilliant, cruel piece of architectural irony. I mean, think about it. We build these structures to protect ourselves from the chaos of nature. The hurricane glass was installed specifically to keep a storm out of the broadcast booth.
Right.
But in this scenario, the very engineering designed to save him is the exact mechanism that seals his tomb. The protection becomes the prison.
And the timing of the universe is just sadistic. The exact moment he realizes the glass will hold, the structural integrity of the room fails from the other side.
Yeah, the door gives way.
The hinges on that heavy steel acoustic door literally shear off with cheap plastic. A massive, violent wall of churning, black, debris-filled water detonates into this tiny room.
It's a catastrophic failure of the environment.
It's so fast, it erases all available space in a millisecond.
And the visual composition the script uses here is incredibly disorienting.
Oh, completely.
The scenario voice observes that gravity is suddenly replaced by violent currents. The booth becomes this instant, chaotic, submerged aquarium.
Yeah.
The panels show vinyl records, loose scripts, heavy microphones, and Marcus himself all tumbling uncontrollably in this freezing black vortex.
And Marcus's internal monologue describes the physical sensation of the water hitting his lungs like inhaling shattered glass.
Awful.
The water is so dense with freezing mud and debris, he can't tell up from down. He can't even keep his eyes fully open.
Right.
But through the murky depths, there is one visual anchor that refuses to die. That red on-air sign.
Of course.
It is miraculously still glowing, casting this eerie, bloody luminescence through the churning black water. And Marcus's inner voice just says, "It's watching me."
The impartial observer overseeing the execution. Which brings us to the climax of the loop. The digital clock hits 3:00 a.m.
End of the 10 minutes.
The scenario voice returns to its absolute coldest register. It documents the final seconds. The struggle ceases. The final reserve of oxygen escapes as a cluster of silver bubbles. The lungs flood. The broadcast is over.
The visual they pair with that narration is the thing that really stuck with me. We get a tight close-up of Marcus's submerged face.
Like, it's haunting.
His eyes are wide open, staring into the dark, muddy water. But you expect to see, like, wide-eyed, thrashing panic. You don't.
No, you don't.
The script explicitly directs that his expression reflects total, exhausted defeat, not active panic.
Because the physical pain of drowning, as horrific as it is not the true climax of the terror here.
You know.
No. The true horror of this narrative lies in the subversion of closure, the psychological devastation of the reset.
Right.
We rely on the concept of an ending to give suffering a boundary. Death in most media is a release. It's the period at the end of the sentence.
But the script rips that period right away. We move from his flooded lungs to a panel of absolute blackout, pitch black space.
It's just nothing.
The only thing drawn is a flat, neon green digital line running horizontally across the center. It looks like a dead heart monitor or a flatline audio signal.
And the scenario voice states, the signal terminates, absolute silence, dead air. It lulls the reader into a momentary sense of finality, like a rest.
But it's a trap. Because the very next frame, panel 11, is an instant, identical replication of the very first panel of the script.
Right back to the start.
The room isn't flooded anymore. The acoustic foam is completely dry. The lighting is dim but stable. Marcus is back, sitting perfectly still in his rolling chair, wearing his flannel shirt with those heavy headphones over his ears.
Unbelievable.
And the red on-air sign glows steadily above the door. And the digital clock on the console reads 2:50 a.m. once again.
The scenario voice offers its final report. The foam is dry, the air is still. Marcus sits before the microphone. The clock strikes 2:50 a.m.
So what does this all mean? I am still trying to wrap my head around the emotional weight of that reset. Before he drowned, in his final internal thought, Marcus says, it's not the pain of drowning that breaks you. It's the realization that dying doesn't grant you peace. Dying just resets the clock.
Yeah.
And he confesses to himself that at the end, he just stopped fighting. He opened his mouth and let the water in because he was just so unbearably tired.
He just wanted it over with.
He knew he had to hurry up and let the water in just so he could get back to the starting line.
That is the ultimate destruction of hope. Purgatory isn't an expansive fire, you know.
No.
It's a tight 10-minute loop of mundane routine colliding with guaranteed trauma. The webtoon takes a very human desire for finality and completely removes it from the table.
It makes you look at everything differently. We all have routines, like we discussed at the very beginning. We like the predictable.
Sure, we crave it.
But this story acts as a masterclass in how you can use simple, everyday audiovisual cues to turn a routine into a cycle of compounding dread.
Oh, yeah.
The flashing yellow light of a hold button, the red glare of a studio sign, the static on a monitor. In a normal routine, these are just tools of the trade. Here, they become unavoidable mechanical markers of doom. It uses supernatural horror to explore that very human fear of being trapped in uncontrollable, repeating cycles.
And this raises an important question, really.
Yeah.
We should reflect on how the setting fundamentally alters the meaning of his punishment.
Okay, how so?
Well, a radio broadcast booth is by definition an architecture of connection.
Right.
You sit in a soundproof room specifically so you can transmit your voice out into the vast darkness of the world. It's a lifeline.
Oh, yeah.
But the script subverts that entirely. It turns the ultimate tool of communication into a completely isolated, closed-loop trap. He's sitting at a microphone, but the only thing coming through the signal is his own death sentence.
That is isolation in its absolute, most concentrated form. He is screaming into the void, but the void isn't just ignoring him, it's actively resetting the clock to make him scream again.
Yeah, exactly.
It leaves you with something really freaky and heavy to mull over long after you stop reading. If Marcus's mind retains the memories of every single loop, and we know he does because he remembers trying to break the console in past iterations,
Right.
how many actual cumulative lifetimes has he spent trapped in those suffocating 10 minutes between 2:50 and 3 a.m.? Is it decades? Centuries?
It's terrifying to even guess.
What happens to a human soul when eternity isn't this vast, open expanse, but is instead violently compressed into a 10-minute countdown?
It suggests that eternity isn't a length of time at all. It's just the absence of progress.
Wow. Thank you for joining us on this custom deep dive. We'll leave you to sit with that thought in the dead air.